All right, I'm starting the bulletin, shifting focus to West Asia now. Amid ongoing tensions with Israel, Iran will restructure its airspace for almost 40 hours. Iran has issued NOTAM, which is a notice to air missions, restricting airspace within the Tehran flight information region from 2:30 a.m. local time to November 4th, 6:30 p.m. local time on the November 6th. Well, the designated zone falls within Semnan province in north-central Iran, as you can see in the map in front. The region is known for hosting the Imam Khomeini Space Center, IKSC. The center has historically been the launch site for both civilian satellite missions and potential military-related missile tests. The specified restricted altitude of up to 10,000 feet above sea level aligns with standard procedure for a ground-based firing exercise or the early phase of missile or satellite launches. The timing holds significance as it comes only a week after Israel's latest round of strikes on Iran on the 26th of October, which Tehran initially played down. However, the country's Supreme Leader Khamenei, in his latest statement, has threatened Israel as well as the US, which he accused of being complicit in the strikes, of a crushing response. All right, for more on this, we are now being joined by Fouad Izadi from Tehran. He's an associate professor, Faculty of World Studies, University of Tehran. He's also a columnist and a political commentator. Professor, thank you so much for joining me here on WION World is One. So, Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei has warned both Israel and US of a crushing response. And of course, what we've just carried in this report as of now, the airspace from November 4th to 6th. And of course, we know those dates are, I mean, they have November 5th in the middle, and we know what that means for the US. What will Iran's True Promise 3 look like, and when is it expected?
I think it's going to be bigger than the first two. The hope that Iran had was that the first operation and the second operation would clear deterrence, would create deterrence. Iran is not interested in a war with anyone, but the calculation in Tehran is that if attacking Iran has no cost, these attacks would continue. We know that Israelis don't have any ethical limitations. They're killing 20, 30, 40 children on daily basis in Gaza and Lebanon. The only language they understand in the eyes of the Iranian leaders is the language of force. And they don't want to see a repetition of what you see in Gaza and Lebanon in Iran. And the only way you can achieve that is to show that the cost of attacking Iran is extensive, and I think the third attack would be more extensive than the first two. When would it happen? I don't know. Generally, armies want to have a level of surprise. They engage in psychological operations. They engage in different tactics to make sure that what they are doing is effective. Iran has the right to respond under Article 51 of the UN Charter. Iran was attacked last week, and I think it will come sooner or later. But the exact date, I think everybody is guessing on that.
Professor Izadi, reports suggested that this attack could take place before the US elections, and US has even reacted to this, or these reports, saying that it will consider it an interference with US polls if that indeed happens. And how soon will Iran's attack take place, if there is any estimate that you put on that?
I don't know about the timing, but what we do know is that when Iran was attacked last week, it was a joint Israeli-American operation. The airspace of Iraq is controlled by the Americans. Iraq is a sovereign country. It's a full member of the United Nations. And since 2003, which is 21 years ago, the Iraqi government does not control airspace of its own country. The Americans control that. And they provided a corridor for the Israeli jets to come, violate Iraqi airspace, and attack Iran. Israelis would not have been able to attack Iran without a joint cooperation with the Americans. And I think the Americans need to remember that they are as vulnerable as Israelis in this part of the world. There are a lot of American soldiers. And as I said, the calculation here is that there needs to be a cost when Iran is attacked. And the countries that engaged in that attack, whether Israeli or American, should think twice before engaging in this type of activities.
Strong words there, Professor, as you mentioned that US soldiers or Americans are as vulnerable as the Israelis. I wanted to just bring your attention to this as I take that comment of yours and now I add to that. US already has its boots in Israel. The THAAD systems have been deployed for Israel's protection. US has also positioned 2 B-52 bombers in West Asia. The US has Abraham Lincoln aircraft carriers likely in the Arabian Sea, and more destroyers, fighter squadrons, tankers are being directed to the region. How is Iran viewing this US posturing? There is a lot of military might on display.
True, and that gives Iranian military leaders more options in the places that they want to hit. If they have to engage. If they have to engage with the Americans, that would create more spaces to hit. Iran is not interested in a military confrontation with the United States. But this type of attacks on Iran, we already experienced 3 in the last number of months. Iran is not going to be able to tolerate these type of attacks. So Iranian leaders want to make sure that their country is not attacked again. And they cannot take the case to the UN because Americans have the veto power there, and they would veto anything that is critical of Israel at the United Nations. Iran's foreign minister has been traveling, visiting all regional countries in the last number of weeks. But diplomacy, it seems, is not going to achieve that deterrence that Iran needs. And sooner or later, there is going to be a third operation.
Professor, I wanted to get your thoughts on this because this is a question I've raised with several Western voices as well. I'm keen to understand your perspective on this. Do you feel Iran's energy facilities have been left vulnerable, especially after Israel's recent attacks, where certain reports, and several of them, suggested that several of Iran's S-300s, the air defense systems, were destroyed? Are Tehran's nuclear facilities open to an attack now?
We know that Israelis have capabilities that the Americans have given to them. So we know that. But Iran is a much bigger country than occupied Palestine. And if there is a major war between Iran and the Zionists, I think they're going to be more vulnerable to a major war. The cost on them is going to be greater. The hope that Iran has is that the Israeli leaders realize that fact and refrain from attacking Iran. That's the only hope that they have, that they understand their vulnerabilities and they would not engage in this type of activities. If they attack Iranian nuclear facilities, that would give Iran an option to change its nuclear doctrine. I'm sure there are Iranian leaders that would be interested in changing Iran's nuclear doctrine. If they attack Iranian oil facilities, that would give Iran to attack Israeli oil installations. Iranians have this culture of resistance. They have had sanctions for many years. They oppose outside intervention. The people who have occupied Palestine have gone there because they were told there are free land, free jobs, free money,
I hear you.
Security, and none of that is available. So I don't think there is any culture of resistance in occupied Palestine by the people who have occupied it.
Professor, I do find it interesting that you've not ruled out the fact that the energy facilities might just be vulnerable or they could be attacked. But as you mentioned that for you or for your country, that opens more options for a counter. And as the statements have already come in from the leadership in Iran that Operation True Promise 3 is going to be deadlier than earlier. And as you mentioned as well. Thank you so much for joining me on the broadcast. That was Professor Fuad Ezadi joining me from Tehran.
Thank you.